G'day ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 8 of the Player Issue Podcast. No, there is no intro music today. Unfortunately, we have lost a very, very good man in the football landscape, and we just want to pay our respects to the great Danny Spud Frawley. And there's probably no better way to do that than Jared Waitley from Fox Footy, from the AFL 360, as he takes us through a tribute to Danny Frawley.
Good evening on what is a devastating night here at Fox Footy. One of profound sadness and deep shock with the death of Danny Frawley. It's a loss that will be felt in every corner of the football world, and will speak to the affection garnered and connections formed through his journey in the game. Famously hailing from Bungaree, Danny played 240 games with St Kilda, captaining the club in 177 of those, winning universal acclaim as one of the finest fullbacks of his generation, culminating with a place in the club's Hall of Fame. Post his playing days, he would go on to coach Richmond for 5 seasons, highlighted by a heady run to the preliminary final in 2001. His contribution continued through roles from specialist coaching to leading the Coaches Association. But it was here at Fox Footy and in his other media roles where we got to know Danny best. Self-deprecating to a fault, the life of the room. It was a rare night when he didn't leave you smiling. It was his gift and he shared it generously. His place in your hearts and the ache you feel tonight will echo how we feel in here. But above all, our prayers and love are with wife Anita and his daughters Chelsea, Danielle and Keely. We'll not present our programs as planned tonight. Instead, we'll honour the life and memory of the man known to all as Spud, Danny Frawley.
Thank you very much to Fox Footy for that wonderful tribute to Danny Frawley. And I know a lot of you are just like me and you thoroughly enjoyed Danny's contributions to the Fox Footy show, The Bounce. He had a wonderful idea, which was very comedic, and it's actually gaining some legs out there now. I'll play the clip first, but this is going to be hard for some people. It was actually hard for me to listen to, as this was from just Saturday afternoon, an hour before the Richmond and Brisbane game. This is the very last recording of the Golden Fist. If you're not aware of what the Golden Fist is, you need to check it out because it's hilarious stuff and something that Danny Frawley will certainly go down for as something he's been able to get off the ground. And if you've seen the petition running the rounds at the moment, I really hope you get in there and you sign it, and let's actually hope we can make this a real thing. And I think it would be fantastic for Danny and his legacy to get it off the ground. So I'm going to play this clip for you. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And again, thank you very much, Danny, for all you've done and the hearts you've warmed in the AFL community. And this has actually been rather difficult to do myself. So thank you guys for listening. And here we go with the very last Golden Fist.
Hey. That brings us to the Golden Fist.
Not stupidity at all, Jake. It's getting to the pointy end of the season. The crowd.
I don't understand why this is still running, but anyway.
Well, it's been an outstanding 3 finals so far. Looking forward to Harris Andrew at one end and Grimes at the other tonight, straight after this show. But Kolajasny, just a beautiful ear massage. Have a look at this on my check. It's absolutely just perfect. Have a look at the angle here, Moons. Look at that. That's as good as you'll get. And spoil the ball and takes him off his leg cheap. So that is a very good. So we've got some great spoils of the week. We're going to go for start with Darcy Moore. Let's wait for it. Where's Big Darcy? Have a look at that, Chief. Have a look at that. There was some great spoils there.
To a team, mate.
Where are your next ones? Where are the other ones? Have you sabotaged this, Chief?
That'd be a nice change if I did.
Chief.
But I'm sure.
Okay, we're going to go to the spoiler of the week then. I'm really worried about this. Wait for it. Chief.
What's going on here?
Chief. What is going on, mate?
I just spoke before about people copping their right whack, and now you're copping your right whack.
I can't believe this. We'll have a look at the fist votes then. I just can't believe you.
Well, hang on. How can you give votes when there's a couple more games to go.
Grimes or Andrews, for that matter, or Asprey, they get the chance to vote in next week, right?
No, hang on. So, okay, do your votes for this week.
Maynard won. I think you agreed. Tommy Stewart, he was outstanding, especially that second half. And Jeremy Howe, I suppose the question for mine to you, Moon, is how did they kick the ball so high to him all night? Excuse the pun. I just played into his hands.
No, they were terrible, weren't they? You know what that tells me?
What?
That tells me that you watched one final.
No, I didn't. Not at all. And have a look at Jeremy Howe's highlights. They were absolutely outstanding. 601 metres gained. Now, they're midfield stats.
There's that Spud.
Yeah,
this is one of the great Spudders.
Have a look at that. Absolute defence personified. He had 10 rebounds. He had 10 interceptions. He kicked a goal, as you can see there. And 6 intercept marks. I think he was robbed of about 2 or 3 there, but one of the great games, Chief. So we'll go to the leaderboard now, please.
Okay, have a look at your leaderboard.
Have a look at the leaderboard.
So as I said, we're going to have a discussion after this.
Andrews and
hang on a minute.
And Grimes and all these players.
Right. So
they've got a chance.
Here's my question. There are players on the leaderboard that are still yet to play this weekend.
That's right. Well done. Well done, yeah.
So what if they have a great game?
Well, for example...
No, just answer this. If they play really well, can they get votes next week?
They can. So Harris Andrews...
So what happens if they then have to play next week and play well again?
Harris Andrews, for example, let's say he plays well tonight and they get beat tonight. He may get 1 vote and he might get 3 for next week. Because that's when our show's on.
And we've been worried about the integrity of this award.
So there's the leaderboard, Chief. Who needs some cheering up in the crowd? Let's have a look.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Here we go, the Carlton supporter here. Big round of applause.
Here we go.
The reason I picked Carlton, Chief, we've got a new coach, David Teague. He's going to do outstanding things, but arch enemies, that's right. Collingwood and Carlton. What's your name, Chad? Cooper, where do you live?
Safety Beach.
Okay, what a beautiful spot, Chief. So give this, so this was for you, Jezza. Press the button there. This for you, Jezza.
Oh no, even well done. Good work. Thank you very much.
Great job.
Fist has been awesome.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jason. Fist has been awesome, so thank you again, Danny Spud Frawley, for all the wonderful years you've given to us. And with that, we are now going to move into our interview for the week. This week we had a few technical problems. My internet was being very dodgy, wouldn't work at all at times. So unfortunately our recording time that we had scheduled did get pushed back by a week. Our interviewee also had some issues that he was unable to avoid, of course, which we thoroughly understand. So it did get pushed back a little bit, but we did get to have a conversation. It was on Skype again. You will notice that because my internet is so rubbish, there are a few clipping issues and maybe just a little few spots that aren't particularly fantastic. But I think it comes across rather well and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Don't forget to stick around after the interview as we do our normal thing and we'll cover our ins and outs, what we've seen on eBay, etc. We'll also cover a few other little rumours and some goings on that we've had this week, which has been a pretty major week, so don't forget to stick around for all that after our interview. So without any further ado, here is our interview with Paul Mira. Alright, Paul, how are you, mate?
I'm well, Aaron. How are you?
Yep, going well as always. Alright, Paul, let's get right into it. I mean, I can see you on my end being another Skype interview, wearing your lovely jumper there, but for those of you who don't know you, who do you support and why do you follow them?
I follow the Mighty Magpies. You either love them or hate them, and I was born into it. My old man came out from Greece when he was a youngster, and when he came out here in '59, Collingwood had just won their flag. He thought it would be a good idea to follow the Magpies, but ever since then, we've only won 2 flags, and we've been crying a lot of years. So follow the Mighty Magpies, and pretty happy after last night.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Saturday afternoon that we're recording this. So, yeah, the Pies did just knock off Geelong last night, and I've just watched the Bulldogs and GWS game, and I think a lot of people will be a bit surprised about that result, but I'll be honest, I actually thought the GWS would get up. I don't think I would have expected them to get up by so much, but yeah, I guess a lot of people would be surprised, especially after half-time. I was expecting a hell of a lot closer result. What do you reckon?
Yeah, well, GWS owe the doggies a little bit for their previous losses, so especially in the 2016 finals, I think it was. So it was good to see them get a bit of revenge, and the doggies had a late run in the season, but it was good to see GWS get up and go through, and they're on our side of the draw. So who knows? We might play them in a prelim.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really good final series. I mean, it could be easy to say that Richmond will power over everybody, but then I don't think it will be that easy. I think it's going to be a real tight final series all around. So I'm excited for it as a neutral.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good spread of Vic and interstate teams, and there's teams that can win it from anywhere. And I think the other thing is with the Eagles falling out of the top four, I think even though they're probably the best team in it, they're going to have to win 4 weeks in a row, and they're going to have to travel to do it. So it's going to take a monumental effort for them to get it done back to back.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right, so we're here to talk about jumper collecting as we always do. So tell us, how did you get started, and what was your very first player issue jumper in your collection?
All right. I think for me, I think like everyone, I got started collecting a few different things. I think as a kid, I started collecting footy cards like we all do. We got into the Scanlons and that. I think, Dad had come home from work and he'd stop past the milk bar to get some ciggies and, he'd buy me a packet of footy cards and come home and, give them to me. And then, you'd rip open the wrapper, chew on the old white chewy and then, flick through to see what you got. And so I started collecting footy cards, as a youngster. I think the first year was 85, to be honest. It was about 7 or 8. Fell in love with that. So started collecting cards and grand final records. And that's what I sort of got started on. And that sort of lasted a number of years until I sort of got to an age where I was too cool to collect. And I thought, I'll sell everything up and pocket the money, which I did. And then I realised, I should have kept everything. I ended up buying back some footy cards and some Scanlon's footy cards from various years and started collecting footy records and got to the stage where I'd collected a lot of both and needed a new challenge. And then I stumbled across footy jumpers. To be honest, I hadn't been collecting. The first footy jumper that I got that was player issue was a Ben Johnson long sleeve 2009, which I bought in halfway through 2010. Picked it up for about $90 or $100, I think, at the time. New onto eBay at the time in about 2009, and that sort of didn't spark the collection, but I had that, and I admired the jumper. It was something tangible that related to the actual games and the players, and then slowly, I started to run out of collecting records and cards because they start to get expensive and rarer the further you go back, and so I started collecting jumpers. And probably didn't start getting too serious about that until about 2013. And so for the last 5 years, I've been collecting quietly, jumpers where I can get them. So, yeah, that's how it sort of got started. I stumbled across that site, footyjumpers.com. When you go into that, I think you see, the different clubs and you see the different Guernseys and the different logos and bits and pieces. And I thought to myself, well, it'd be pretty cool to collect Pies jumpers with the different logos on them. So, you got your mini skips, your Yakka, your Spices, Primers, Viatel, Emirates, CGU, TAC, Wizard, Aussie. And so that's how I got started. So I started collecting those and that kicked it off.
Okay, so that normally I'll bring it up at the end of the show, but I'll bring it up early here. So people will try and find your collection, obviously. Where can they find your collection, and what got you started on that venture?
Yeah, I think with my collection, I never had a Facebook profile for a long period of time because my background is as a medical provider, to be honest, and I never had one because I treat thousands of patients. Mm-hmm. And eventually I stumbled across Facebook and I saw a bit of your stuff on there and a few others, and I thought, wow, there's a few other guys that actually collect. They've got a passion for what I sort of collect quietly, and I'd been collecting for years. And so after listening to a couple of your podcasts, I set up a page called Collingwood FC Jumpers and Guernseys. So if you go on to Facebook, it's a private little group, but happy to add whoever wants to join. And it's just for serious collectors to have a look and sort of, I share bits and pieces of my collection with some themes behind it, a bit of conversation and a few different topics that we can all relate to, and people chip in here and there, and there's some pretty good stuff on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I watch your page quite a lot, actually, and I think it's more because it's really engaging. I think you obviously know your stuff for a start, but you also know a lot of little things that people may not know, and you chuck them out there. Maybe just get some topics going that you want to get some feedback on, and it's just really interesting to follow, and I quite enjoy it, actually. So yeah, thanks for that. It was a really good page.
No, thank you. Thanks for that. I think the key with it is I think that a lot of collectors are very similar in a lot of ways, and we don't realise it. But when you start to share and people think, hey, I don't like frame Guernseys, or hey, I like collecting just the player signatures, or, I collect I don't know, some type of jumper or whatever it might be, you realise, hey, a lot of people have similar thoughts. So, it's been pretty interesting. It's been an eye-opener and a bit of a learning experience, and you're always picking up bits and pieces as you go.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think I probably kept myself a little bit low key for a while just because I thought, no one out there is quite as maniacal as I am, or no one's got the same interests as me. But then after not just this group, or rather this podcast, and the group that we've created from it, but also just from all the other groups that have popped up in the last year or so, just you'd figure out real quickly that everyone's kind of got the same thoughts and ideas, and it's just all about the feeling that you get from collecting the jumpers, because really that's all it is. It's just you're just collecting a piece of material that a lot of people couldn't give two rats' asses about, but yeah, we just love it just because it is what it is, and it's just I can't really explain it, but it is just the feeling that it gives you, and finding that rare gem or finding that piece that you've been after for a while, and yeah, it's just incredible sometimes.
Yeah, there's nothing better than collecting them, I reckon, and it gives you a bit of a rush, and it's a bit of a challenge as well. I think the other good thing about collecting, especially for a club like Collingwood, which a lot of people hate, but we've got so many different jumpers available. So you've got your Anzacs, your Indigenous. We've had emergency services jumpers in 3 different years. You've got your AFL, VFL, your women's teams, and then you've got a range of special edition jumpers. We've had heritage jumpers, the Forever jumper, Legends jumpers, pre-season, Millennium, the 125 celebration, and then you've got the various grand final jumpers if your team makes them. So it's there's certainly plenty out there, and there's always something to collect and a challenge, and it's the thrill of the chase, I reckon.
You're absolutely right, and I think that's what it is with collectors as well. They actually know those type of little nuances, but if you're talking to someone who's maybe not that interested or into jumper collecting or really AFL that much at all, if you say Collingwood, they'll probably just think, oh yeah, black and white stripes, and that's the end of it. Whereas, yeah, like you say, there's actually a lot more out there, and it may only be one little change, but that one little change is something that makes you spark and go, all right, yeah, I need to have that, because it's another jumper that's different in my collection. So, yeah, it's pretty incredible once you start digging deep into it, and your page certainly does that. So, yeah, like I say, if you haven't checked it out, definitely go and have a look, because he's definitely got some stuff on there that I learned from. And as you mentioned, the footyjumpers.com is a massive, massive help if you're trying to find out some information or just trying to do a review on some jumpers that you're not too sure about. It helps a lot. So, and I use that page every time I see a jumper that I'm not too sure about. So, yeah, spot on there. Absolutely. Thank you, Mira, actually, is the guy that made that. So thank you very much. What are your collecting goals? I've noticed on your page that you have not just jumpers, but you've got boots, you've got hats. I'm sure you've got some other little weird obscurities on there, but what's your goal in the end? Do you have one, or is it just to get everything?
I don't know. I think, I went to uni for a long period of time, and, I was busy studying. I spent my money on collecting, footy cards and footy records, and to be honest, I've got a lot of them. And so when I started collecting jumpers, I've had various sort of thought processes as I've gone along, and some haven't probably been the best. So I started out collecting the sponsors' logos and was lucky enough to land most of them. And then I thought to myself, well, I've got some good jumpers here, so why don't I start collecting every jumper Collingwood's ever worn?
Yeah.
The problem is with that is, A, it costs a lot of money. B, it takes a lot of time. See, you can drive yourself crazy around trying to do that. So, for example, an example is that when a jumper gets released, often I'll buy the retail version, not knowing whether I'll get the PI or match worn.
Yep.
And then what happens is if I'm lucky enough to land that, then I've got the retail to sort of say, well, there's not much to that. I could probably get rid of it. But if you're collecting that way and you're trying to collect a bit of everything, which I've got most jumpers from Collingwood since 1981, it can drive you crazy and it costs you a lot of money. And so you have to sort of back sell all your retails and, if you're lucky enough to get the PIs. So I've been collecting a bit of everything, and then along the way I'll sort of set little mini challenges. So I've collected all of the 2010 grand final team player issue when we won the flag. So you can check that out on the Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried to collect all of our current team because I reckon we're close to a flag and was hoping we'd win one last year. So I'm a few off that. So if anyone's got a Stevenson, a Varco, or a Callum Brown, please get in touch. I'm desperate to get a few of those Guernseys. And then, I've set some other challenges around numbers. So you can check that out on the page as well. I've got most numbers from 1 to 61. I just need a couple. Obviously, Darren Mulaney can't get because the club never released a jumper past his death. But, chasing a few of them as well. So I've got little goals for me. I've probably got between us, I've probably got about 25 jumpers that I'm still chasing. And there's some really obscure ones and a couple of numbers and a couple of players. And so I've always got little goals. But that's sort of where I'm at the moment.
Yep. All right. Well, it sounds like you're going to be going for a little while at least. So how many jumpers would you say you have in your collection right now? Do you know exactly?
Do I know? I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. I think last count between us, I certainly don't have the biggest collection out there, so I'm not going to claim that. I think I've got last count, I think I had about 105 player-ish match warns. Probably got about another 50 proper training match worn PIs. So not match worn training, obviously, player issue. And all up, I reckon I've got about 350 Collingwood tops of some sort, which is borderline being sickness, I think.
Do you know of any Collingwood fans or collectors that have a larger collection than you?
I reckon there's definitely one, who's very big. He's an ex-player. Owns the shop on Smith Street, Collingwood, in Melbourne. So played for Collingwood in the 80s, Cameron Doyle, and I reckon he's got a fantastic collection. He showed me a little bit of it at some stages, but I couldn't tell you. I definitely know he'd have more than I do. But for me, it's really around collecting the player issue match warns, all the different types. Mm-hmm. I've been lucky to get some absolute rippers, and so I'm not chasing volume. I'm sort of chasing the history of the jumper and the different types back to 81 at the moment. Before that, it's pretty rare. And before 96, when the jumpers started changing, and what I mean by that is easier to identify, very hard to pick up player issue or match warns. And I've heard you mention it and a few other collectors mention it. So those are very, very hard to get.
Indeed, yeah. Actually, I sent you a message yesterday about a jumper that's on eBay that I wasn't too sure because it's around 90 to 93 style. And they're not trying to pass it off as a player issue or anything like that, but even I wasn't too sure looking at it. And the only thing that made me think that it wasn't was the Seacom logo on the bottom of the jumper. It's the only thing I thought maybe they didn't have that on the player issue jumpers. So I just asked you the question and you straight up said, yep, no, definitely retail. But it makes it very difficult to find the player issue match warrants in that era because it's too hard sometimes to figure out unless you know the little tiny nuances that you're looking for. I'm just going to ask you, what is it that gave that away? What was it that made that a retail for sure in your eyes?
Well, I've got a few jumpers from that era, and I'm super cautious, I'll be honest with you. I don't buy jumpers from that era unless they're from a player themselves or someone who worked at the club or the club themselves, purely because you just don't know. Because at that time, a lot of retails and a lot of club jumpers were the same. Same tags, same sort of makeup. But if you've got the actual club jumpers, they tended to be made from a better material. With Collingwood, we did have the sort of pinstripe running down each side of the sort of the black stripe. So they have a black stitch either side. It's you could pick up bits and pieces, but the giveaway on that one was that tag down the bottom. Yeah, it's sort of the giveaway. I think the other thing for me, the big ticket item, is just the quality of jumpers. I was lucky enough to pick up a Brad Rowe Reserves jumper from 92 in the last few weeks from a guy who worked at Collingwood for a number of years, and he had it tucked away. And when you get your hands on one of those jumpers, you realise quickly how much better quality they are than the retail to some degree. And so there are little nuances you can pick up, but unless you get them from someone reputable, I'd be very cautious in doing so.
Yeah, it does certainly make it very hard, which makes me more so happy that the Freo only started post-95, so it does make it a little bit easier to find the Freo ones, that's for sure.
No doubt.
Okay, so you mentioned that Collingwood have had quite a number of different designs over the time. It may be a bit of a tough question, but what is your favourite design that the club has had?
Favourite design? I'm lucky enough to have the full set of Anzacs. So we started with an Anzac logo. So the Anzac game for Collingwood pretty much started in 95. Everyone knows about that. It was the draw where Rocker kicked 10 goals and Buckley had the chance to win it and then tried to kick it to Rocker. And so the Pies supporters will know that game. But we started wearing an Anzac logo on the jumper in 2005. And I'm lucky enough to have player issues from 2005 to 2019. And, I think that set's pretty good. To be honest, I think to have that set is very rare in player issue because there's always 1 or 2 years you're going to miss out on, and so I'd probably say that set is probably my favourite. But in terms of jumpers, I mean, you've always got your favourites, individual ones, and that might not be style, it might be based on rarity or that it's your favourite player or someone or whatever it might be. So there's others that fit that category.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is one that I haven't asked before, and it could be a very interesting question here. I'm really excited to hear your answer if you've got one. You mentioned also that there is a lot of sponsor combinations that you guys have had over time. Would you have a favourite sponsor combination on your jumpers?
Yeah, I think for me as a young kid, idolising players, and when I was young, Peter Dacos was obviously my favourite. And so if you go back to those sort of years, you had 3 iconic sort of sponsors. One was Yakka, 2 was Mini Skips, and then 3 we went into sort of Spices in 89. But for me, I think the number one for me is Mini Skips. I just think it's probably based on age, to be honest. I was a young kid. I was 10 at the time. They wore it from 86 to 88, and I was 9 to 11 during that sort of phase. And for me, it was just iconic. And I just love that. I think the rarest is the Viatel logo. We were sponsored by Viatel. Collingwood signed a deal with Viatel at the beginning of 98, but the company went broke before the season started and they scrapped the jumper. There's a few floating around, and I'm lucky enough to have a Buckley pre-season worn jumper for that logo. And for me, it's probably my rarest jumper that I own.
Yeah, that sounds actually awesome. I believe I have seen it on your page. Is that right?
Yes, it is up on the page a couple of times. Yeah, I was lucky enough to get that off a collector, and he actually asked recently to buy it back, and I sort of politely said, I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah,
I've always wondered sometimes that some of the jumpers I've sold, and I'm thinking, oh, man, I wish I didn't sell that. I always think, should I reach out and try and buy it back? But never have. But, I'm sure one day down the line, especially Hamish, mate, you know exactly what jumper you have in mind that I may come running for, but I know you're going to tell me to piss off, so may not bother. Yeah, I feel that. So also, I've noticed on your page, I like the fact that you're not just one-dimensional. You've started a little small collection of the women's jumpers as well.
Yeah, I have. I sort of mentioned at the start of this podcast that, following Collingwood, you're super lucky in terms of the variety of jumper you've got. And, we've had an AFL women's team recently. We've also had a VFL women's team. So there's jumpers in those spaces. The reason why I got into it is because Collingwood's vice captain of their women's team is my daughter's PE teacher at school. And so every time I go to pick her up from school, sometimes I'll bump into her, Emma Grant. And that inspired me to why not collect a few of them as well? So I've been lucky enough to get a few of those. And the company that makes up our VFL women's jumper, CGR, I think they are based locally here. And so you can ring them up and get them to make you up a replica jumper, player issue.
Yeah, right.
So, I pick up the VFL women's ones through them directly. So, yeah, it's a nice little addition and keeps the collection ticking over.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't like the women's game, but I guess they're probably just purist or they're just, I don't know. I don't really give my opinion on that too much, but I actually rather like it. I mean, I guess it is a little bit slower on the pace side of things, but if you watch back to when they first started the first season, the skills weren't there, but coming 3 years on, it's amazing how much they've improved. And there's quite a lot of players. Like you'll look at the AFL and you'll always have your favourite players from different clubs. And it's the same with the women's game. There's certain players out there at different clubs that you can immediately identify with because they are very good players. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I'm more than happy to collect AFLW jumpers if they come up. I do have a few myself, and a couple are actually Brisbane. So, I mean, they're obviously not my club, so it doesn't matter. If I saw a Chloe Malloy jumper, for instance, come up, I'd jump all over that because she's fantastic to watch. So, yeah, and I totally agree. Like, I certainly wouldn't veer away from collecting the AFL women's jumpers at all. It's another piece of history.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, I think the biggest disadvantage for the women's game is probably the scoring is a little bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people don't realise, how big that game could become, the potential behind it. And it's really gathering a wave of momentum. And for collectors, what they may not also realise, but they should clue into pretty quickly, is it's the beginning of the actual game. So if you were to say to me that you had an early jumper of an AFL team, so let's talk back to 1900 for some of the teams, everyone would be bamboozled by it. There's very few around. So to say that you're collecting the first few years of the women's league, imagine what that's going to be like in 50 years. How good the jumpers are going to be, how rare, how valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree. You look at it exactly the same way as me. I've got Taylor Harris's match-worn grand final jumper from the first season. So, yeah, it's beautiful and nice and filthy as well, which I don't know if that's a bit weird being that she's a part of the female league. But, yeah, I've also got one of the balls from that game as well. So, yeah, those are the sort of things that, I'll just hang on to and wouldn't look to move on because, like you say, it's the very start of something new. And if people were all over the 1987 West Coast jumpers, you know how much they go for it, as well as the Brisbane jumpers. And if you ever see a Collingwood very first season jumper, I'm sure that would be going in a very, very high amount. So, yeah, no, totally agree with you there. So, another question for you that I bring up quite a lot in other shows. I guess second or third episode I started bringing it up, but it's certainly been one that's I've caught traction of on the group's pages as well, and that is not only where do you store your jumpers, but I've noticed you got a couple of frame ones behind your head there. Is framing the way to go for you, or is it something that you just get if it's framed and you're going to look to take it out maybe, or give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was something that sort of pricked my interest, looking at the forums and various pages and some of your stuff on there as well around frame jumpers. I've never been a fan of frame jumpers. I've had a few hanging up in, at home and at the clinics and bits and pieces that I work in. But what I would say is I like to collect the jumpers in their natural form and keep them that way. And that means not framed. If they're dirty, leaving them dirty, hanging them out, in the garage or whatever it might be to air them out until the stench goes away, and then keeping them as they are. I only own 3 frame Guernseys, a 2002 signed Guernsey, a heritage Guernsey from 2005, and I've got a 2010 replica Guernsey because my biggest whale is a 2010 grand final player issue, which are very rare. There's only 3 I've seen, and certainly one I'm chasing. So no frames for me. It's just me. It's just a personal preference. They look great in frames, but I find that, jumpers can be damaged. So I've taken a number of them out over the years. And, there's various framing methods. Framers will glue, they'll stitch, they'll pin, they'll staple, they'll double tape, they'll do all sorts of things to put jumpers in. And I just find that, they get damaged and they're never the same. And if you've paid big money, or you're lucky enough to land a player issue, you want to keep it that way. So that's just my preference. In terms of storage, I'm lucky enough that a mate's dad has a factory with some storage space that's very secure, and so I keep my collection there in a little room that's air conditioned on racks, like most of us, just on hangers. And it's just a carpeted air conditioning sort of airtight room, 2x2 with a coffee table and just some racks in them. And I keep them there because, I've collected some pretty valuable jumpers and I don't sort of keep them at home. Just purely, I've just kept them there only in the last 12 months or so because my collection, I think, has sort of grown in value a little bit. And, we all value our collections differently, but for me, that's just where they are at the moment. So I'll only keep the ones I want to trade or the new ones I pick up at home, in the cupboard. So, that's sort of where I'm at the moment, which is a little different to others. I think the only reason they're sort of in storage a little bit is because I'm lucky enough to have a mate's dad who I'm very close with have that room for me to be able to store them off-site and in a secure location.
Yeah, very nice. I like that. You mentioned you had a coffee table there, so I'm imagining you just sitting there having a good sip of a coffee and just staring into the abyss that is your jumpers.
Yeah, I get there. It's close to home, so it's not too far, a couple of K, and so sometimes I'll go down there and take some photos for the page, put them on. Some of the photos on the page are old, and some are new, and some are on mannequins, which I don't have. I've only got one of, and so I vary it up. But I'm lucky that they're close to home, and at the drop of a hat, I can bring them back or change them up. But I think, I've also got training jumpers. I've got some club jackets, training jackets, coaches tops. There's variations in my collection. I've got I've got Darcy Moore's sort of draft combine sort of tops, and a few different sponsor sort of tops and jumpers and bits and pieces. So it's there's a few offshoots that I've sort of got that you can see on the page that I sort of keep there as well. So the collection's probably bigger than a pure jumper collection in some ways.
Yeah. You blown me there. I never even thought about off-site storage, but yeah, I guess I'm too attached to them. I like walking into that room every night and just having a good little look and then walking back out again. But it's a good way of doing it. Definitely, certainly keep them very safe. That's for damn sure. Okay, so actually, you also mentioned that you like to take a good photo of them, and I've got to ask you. I've seen the photo that many times, but I think it's a profile photo of your page. How long did it take for you to lay out all your jumpers like that?
Yeah, that's actually not my collection.
There we go.
Yeah, actually I stole that photo. I did ask permission, but that's a photo from another collector, NCB Nathan Brown. He's a number 16 collector. Aaron, so you'll love him. He's based 16, up in North Queensland. He's a fellow Pies supporter, and he's crazier than I am, and he loves his collecting. If you ever see him on Facebook, go to NCB's Parliament House. He's a mad cricket fan as well, and I love his stuff on Facebook. And so I asked him, I said, I'm going to set up a page for us collectors, and I'm going to invite Aaron and a few others, Lynchy and all the guys that are out there that are serious collectors, and I'm going to use your shot as my profile shot. And he said, yep, go for it. So he's got some great jumpers on there, and so I love it.
Indeed, there's definitely some beauties in there. The reason I brought that up was because I actually, funny you brought up 16. The only time I've ever done that is when I laid out my Dave Mundy collection on the dining room floor. And I think I had 24 at the time, so it wasn't even that many, but I was sweating bullets by the time that was done, and I refused to ever do that again. So if I ever try to lay out my 230 odd that I got now, I'd need a helicopter to at least take a photo of it anyway, but it would take me a long time to do it. So yeah, I definitely plaudits to Brownie for doing that, because that was a hell of an effort by the looks of it.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times, and you're right, I was sweating bullets as well. But it's very interesting that you collect 16s for Mundy, and his name's obviously Nathan Brown, and so Nathan Brown playing for Collingwood, he's collected his 16. So I have a good laugh, but I love that variation in collecting from you two guys.
I actually have a number 16 right behind me as well, but it's not the Dave Mundy. It's actually the old mate Chris Main. So, yeah, just another 16 for you. So
Very, very rapt that you guys are trading to us, and hopefully we can win a flag with him. He's played in a few losing grand finals to date.
he has, yes. He hasn't been too happy about any of them. So, yeah, I kind of hope he does get one, but it will be bittersweet, that's for sure. I actually played cricket with Maney, so he is a good bloke, even though his hair is a little bit out there.
Yeah, he's a champion.
So Paul, I think you mentioned already, but what is your oldest player issue in your collection?
Oldest player issue? That's a good question. I have a 1981 Choco Williams that I think's a player issue. I can't 100% verify it, but I think it's very, very close if it is. And so that's what I'm going to run with. I can't 100% say for sure. I didn't get it off him. I bought it, but I've done some checks on it and it looks to check out. Whether it is or not, I can't 100% tell. I think that the most difficult thing about doing that from the early 80s without, Choco giving it to me himself would be the fact that, the patches are very hard to verify. In terms of a lot of them were made with different materials. They were a lot softer. If they were game used, they were soft. If they weren't and they were a player issue that never got worn, they were still a bit stiff. So, super hard to tell. But for me, I'm running with that as my earliest sort of player issue.
Very nice, very nice. Not a bad little player either. Also, pretty decent coach.
That's right. He captained Collingwood, so we love him.
Okay, so you've told us a few of them already, but what would be some of your favourites in your collection? The Millennium Jump. Now, I'm just going to say it out there. That Millennium Jumper, those of you who have never seen one or even know what it is, you need to check it out because I'd completely forgotten about that game until I saw it on your page. And I actually remembered watching it in 2000 when I was a kid. So I say kid, how old was I? Yeah, I was still a kid, I guess. So, and yes, that brought back some serious memories. So that one right there for me, that was pretty incredible to see that. So, sorry, you go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's in my top few. I think for those who don't know, Collingwood played a game on the New Year's Eve against Carlton, 99-2000, clicking over. Called it the Millennium Match, issued patches for the Collingwood jumper that are iron-on, and only the game-worn ones and a few spares are around. Very rare. I reckon there's probably less than 30 floating around, to be honest. Having that urge to collect every jumper that Collingwood's worn, you keep an eye out for different things, and I have a list of different ones that I want to collect, and that was one of them. And I was lucky enough to pick up a Damien Monkhorst, which I believe is a spare. It's not a match worn. It's one of the spares. He was on the list. He didn't play in that game, but I did pick it up. It does have a COA with it, and so it's 100% legit, but super rare, super lucky. Never seen one in 10 years of trawling the collecting pages and eBays and everything else. Mm-hmm. And so that's definitely in the top few. As I mentioned, the Viatel preseason Buckley from 98 is up there. Never seen another. It gets a lot of comments. The Anzac set and a few others. I think the other ones that I sort of love are the grand final ones. I've been lucky enough to get some player issue spares and some match worns. Mm-hmm. But the Lucuria one from 2002, where he was crying with Malthouse, is what I call a history jumper. It's one of those moments, club that you sort of supporters will always relate to. So pretty lucky to get that. And one of my cousins is very close mates with Alan Didak, and I was lucky enough to get his 2010 Anzac, and so that one for me is a special one because I love Didak, love Dacos, and now love DeGoey because they're sort of special players, and so they're sort of some of my favourites, to be honest.
Yeah, beautiful. Now, we've heard in the previous episode with Dave, he had some very interesting methods on the way he got some of his jumpers, including taking the jumper off the back of a 4-year-old kid. Now, I don't endorse that, however, but I certainly would give it a crack myself if it came about. But anyway, how do you find your jumpers, and do you have any sort of crazy methods that you've gone to get one?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great question. And I did laugh when Dave was on your podcast and that he had his own business cards made up, because I've always had business cards, but they've never been for jumper collecting. So kudos to him. And his collection's fantastic, and good luck to him. I'm not sure I could do that, but I did note down a couple of ways that I've sort of been collecting. And I think the key to it is, one, people are going to think you're weird at times. People are not going to be able to relate to you. I think you've got to have your hand in a number of pies and, Stokes in a number of fires. So for me, I think, the club store, club auctions, players that are current and past players, although you've got to be super respectful around that. I think you've got your regular sellers and collectors that help each other. And that's still growing. I think there's some genuine collectors that'll help each other and understand, the collecting, but there's others that just don't get it. I think you've got Facebook, you've got eBay, Gumtree, friends and family, work, auctions, and then you've got the makers of the jumpers, the different companies. And so we've had a number of different companies make ours: Seacom, Puma, Adidas, Star, and ISC. And even recently between us, I actually contacted a player agent about jumpers,
Nice.
which was a really interesting experience. And so the dollars threw me, but it was certainly interesting to sort of throw that out there. And so, you've got to use all the tools in your tool bag to sort of get your jumpers, and you've got to face some knockbacks at times. But I think you just got to keep sort of chasing bits and pieces, and you've got to find jumpers that sort of fit your budget. And there's all sorts of different challenges with the collecting, but there's some of the ways I go about it. So they're pretty mainstream, to be honest, but, you can get some really good jumpers through that, and you'd be surprised, you come across people in different walks of life, so for example, today my daughter was doing dancing, and one of the ladies that's daughters also does dancing with my daughter, her husband does a podcast with Pendles called Jock and Journo. And so, you just don't know where you're going to come across. And, that's potentially an option for me to, go down the path to say, hey, you got any jumpers in the collection? And, they always do. Whether they're willing to sell them to you or, give them to you or pass on a contact's a different story. But, you got to think laterally. And, sometimes when you least expect it, something comes up that can get you the jumper that you're sort of chasing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crazy. It mostly is really networking. This whole collecting thing, it really is just one big network. So, yeah, it can come from absolutely anywhere. It could be a dog walker that has one sitting in their closet. So no one's out of the loop.
Yeah, definitely.
You may not want to share with me this one, but we'll give it a crack. What is the most you've ever spent on a single jumper?
Yeah, I've heard you ask that for a number of people. For me, I don't tend to spend a lot of money on jumpers. I have my budgets and I have what I work for. I've paid more than I should for some jumpers to sort of crack that egg in terms of getting that jumper. I think the tough thing is that, if you're presented with a jumper that's got a pretty hefty price tag on it, I think, you got to weigh up whether you're going to see that jumper again in future and how rare it is. And, are you going to get another look at it? I think if you watch shows like American Pickers, which is my favourite show on TV, I absolutely love it. He often will say on that show, the time to buy is when you see it. And so sometimes you're in a situation where you think, well, it's maybe a little bit over my budget. Should I get it? Should I not? And so the most I've ever paid for a jumper is $1,400. And then the next most is I've paid $900 for two of them. And then it goes down dramatically from there. So I'm pretty wrapped with the collection for what I've got. But having said that, if it's a jumper that I want, that I need as part of my collection, or what I'm chasing in terms of to fill a gap in a collection, I will sometimes reach in and pay a little bit extra to get that done.
Would you know how much you spent in total? Or would you just discard that from your memory?
Well, I think you often ask people, how much they reckon their collections were, and it's a super tricky question to answer. But the way that I value it is, if I've got 350 jumpers, I put $100 price tag on each, and that's what I sit with. And so, if I was to do that, then you're looking at $35,000, and
nice.
That's sort of where I have. Some are worth more than that, or much more, and some are worth less. and some are worth more at different times, depending on the player and what happens. But that's sort of where I put my collection at, give or take. And to someone else it might be worth 20, to someone else it might be worth 50. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right. I think I've actually heard that quite a few times where they put on, you just average out a number. $100 sounds about right, to be honest. When you're looking at these larger collections, it's probably the easiest way to really come up with an average of how much your collection's worth. So, yeah, I think that's a lot of people have that same thought. So, I'm probably right with you there as well. So, okay, this is something that Matt brought up in a previous podcast, and we've actually recorded post our actual interview. We've actually recorded a snippet, which I might just chuck into here.
It's something that hasn't really been addressed, in my opinion, in the community. And in my opinion, you don't have to share the same opinion. There's no such thing as reproduction unless the manufacturer who produced that Guernsey actually reissue it. I believe reproductions are just putting sprinkles on shit, and sellers are just labeling them as reproductions when they're actually just fakes. And you just see. I don't know if you've seen on eBay. There's one particular seller who's knocking off like grand final Guernseys and all those like centenary and all those rare ones for like $300, $400.
Yep. The crazy thing is people are actually paying that, which is mental.
It is mental. Not all of them sell. I've recorded a couple, but yeah, it really irks me that people. And I've actually got this one person I'm connected with on Facebook who's a collector, and she forked out a lot of money for a fake Joe Botson Anzac Day Guernsey, and it was just, I looked at it and I go, that is a horrible fake. Yeah, I think she was new to the collecting thing at the time, but yeah, and you just see people just like sellers just taking advantage of people without a lot of knowledge. They were forking out just so much. It nearly happened to me once with the reenactment Guernsey.
And what is brought up is that it's about the grand final jumpers that have shown up a lot on eBay. And not even just eBay, but so I've noticed that you have yourself a few grand final jumpers in your collection. Yep. Can you tell me what you've got for a start? Because I've seen some beauties on your page. And also what your thoughts are on the fake grand final jumpers making the rounds, whether it be at the moment or even the last few years.
Yeah, it's certainly brought up a bit of conversation, and I see it nearly weekly on the forum still. And so people are challenged with, am I buying a fake? Am I buying a real one? For those who, jump on my page and see the photo that I put up early days, I think I put up a photo of all my grand final jumpers, and I've got 1990, 2002, 2003, 2010, 2011, and 2018. And so the 1990 one is a mock-up. It's a patch and on a jumper that's from that time. But those jumpers are so rare, I don't think there was any player spares. But the patches were on hats as well. And so you'll often find that they come off the hats. And then, if you're a collector and you just want that jumper, you can put it on one of the Spices jumpers from that time, and it looks exactly like a replica. And so you're never going to get a player issue from that time. So forget about that. In 2002 and 3, when I started collecting heavily in about 2013, there was none of those jumpers on the market, and it was super frustrating. And so I had to go to a club contact and pay a bit of money to extract those jumpers. And so I paid a bit extra to get them, and then a few spares hit the market. And so I was lucky enough to pick up Paul Lecurier's player issue spares for 2002, 2003 grand finals, and so they're definitely legit. 2010, and one of those years, 2002, was sublimated, and 2003 was an actual iron-on. So I'll get to that in a sec, but we'll work our way through them. In 2010, the jumper was sublimated. Very rare. I've only seen a few hit the market. So I've seen Blair's, Luke Balls, and Presti's. Very rare jumper.
that ball was incredibly upsetting for me because I was outbid on that, sniped in the last second. So stupid me for only putting a $550 limit on it, but yeah, it is what it is.
And to be honest, I bid it on that, and I was out at 500. So I regret every day of the week not buying that thing.
Yeah.
So that was that one. They're very rare to get, and so I've got a replica of that in a frame. And I'm working on trying to get a player issue spare, and so it takes a long time and a bit of work. The 2011 one, I've got Harry O's 2011. It still has his smell on it. It's definitely his. It was a sublimated logo as well. And then 2018, I actually bought one off the auction. So I bought Braden Sears one.
Nice.
And that was an iron-on, and I'm glad I did because it comes with a COA and it comes with peace of mind for me to say that I've got one and it's legit. It's from the club. So if we get back to the jumpers, you've got a mixture of sublimated, which I've seen try to be replicated, and then you've got the patches, which I've seen try to be replicated. And so the trouble for collectors is you don't know 100% what you're getting unless you get it from the player or the club or someone who worked at the club or a relative of a player, etc., etc. It's very hard to verify. And then with a COA or not, and what does COAs mean at the end of the day unless they're from the club themselves? So super difficult question. There has been a number of jumpers come out since last year's grand final with the Collingwood patch on them. Now, what happens is I do have a photo that I've put on my site, I think early days, of Collingwood ironing on the patch, which is two pieces like Lynchy and a few others have said.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is, are they fake? Are they not? The jumpers that they're on are definitely player issue from 2018.
Yep.
And so that's 100% for sure. The patch themselves, are they real? Are they not? There's talk about how thick the 2018 is, the numbers in that 2018, or the rim, the white rim on the patch.
Mm-hmm.
Is it real? Is it not? If it isn't real, it's pretty damn close. And so you run the risk of whether you buy it. I know a few collectors who have bought them. Some love them. Some have panicked and on-sold them. It's really up to each individual. And I think, it's got to sit right with you at the end of the day. It's just a shame that, they try to be replicated. And that's probably because, for years, if you look at the grand finals from 2007 to about 2015, there's a lot of framed replica grand final jumpers with a medal below it that was issued. And so the clubs were producing jumpers with logos on them and bits and pieces that can fool collectors if you don't do your proper research. And so there's bits and pieces out there. It's a tough thing to deal with. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I know that I've got 4 legit. I'm never going to get the 1990, and the 2010 is rare as hen's teeth. And so that's how I've gone about collecting my ones.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. In that 2018, you're absolutely right of how close that actually is, because it had me, I don't know if fooled or if it had me really intrigued. I actually said to everybody that I wouldn't mind just getting it in my hands so I can have a real good look, because by photos it's hard to tell the color of the actual logo. It's hard to tell in photos because it can make a different shine on different lighting effects. So yeah, they are getting incredibly close. So the only way sometimes to tell is, if it's a little bit darker or thicker lining, then you might be able to tell. But really, for me, the only way I could really tell from those ones, the 2018s, was to get it in hand and match it up with the ones I actually have that are legit. So yeah, it's getting scary, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I'll add just very quickly about that is that when you think about it realistically, I've heard that the AFL flies someone out to the clubs to actually iron on the jumpers, the patch onto the jumpers, and it's a 2-piece patch. So realistically, there's got to be some spares that are floating around, and they will get out, and they will get onto jumpers. And so I wouldn't rule out that some of those extras floating around are legit, but as you said, it's very difficult to know one way or the other.
Yeah, that's right. So winding it down, got a few more quick ones for you.
Yep.
Is there anything other than Fremantle? Crikey, started collecting Fremantle now.
Pass.
Is there anything other than Collingwood FC jumpers that you collect, whether it's from another sport or just something completely random, other than what you've already told us to begin with?
No, I do have a collecting sickness, I must admit. I do have a lot of footy cards. I've got nearly every that's made for a number of years, and I do collect footy records and do have every round back to 1972, and so I will admit that on this podcast. It's like confessional at church, this podcast. But the only other thing that I've collected of late were Melbourne City tops, since Melbourne Heart entered the National League and the A-League. And I recently gave the full collection, which I had every year, home and away, and any sort of special editions, to my godson, who is a budding soccer player. And so I gave them to him because my habit was becoming too expensive and I needed to trim down where I'm throwing my money. And so for me, it's Collingwood jumpers only. I only have about 5 jumpers from other clubs, a couple of Suns jumpers, a Club 10 jumper, and a few others I'm trying to get rid of. But it's only Collingwood for me at the moment, and it's likely to stay that way.
I'm actually a Manchester City fan myself, so it's kind of close, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I think one other thing I'll just quickly add. Sorry, Aaron, to cut you off.
Go for it.
I think one of the other things that you've mentioned on your podcast is around that show Cardboard Addicts, and I think for whoever hasn't seen it, get out and have a look at it. I missed it on Foxtel first round and was lucky enough to catch a late night edition midweek at some stage, and I loved it. And it just goes to show the vast, diversity of collectors and, the positive impact it has on individuals and, mental health and people from all walks of life collect and can relate to each other. And it was a great show. And so, if you've got that little tendency to collect, you can definitely relate to that show. And, getting on some of the Facebook pages is certainly worth it as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. I was actually just about to bring that up and you beat me to it, so well done.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think I did bring it up with Dave as well in the previous one, but you can watch that show and it doesn't matter what it is you collect, you can completely 110% relate to it. And one of the things that I was going to mention as far as relating to that was, what does your family and friends think of your collection, or do they even know about it?
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I think they think I'm nuts, to be honest. I think, and in Cardboard Addicts, the collectors do say that. And, you got all walks of life, you got the well-to-do people who collect, and you got people who barely got a cent to their names collecting. And, it doesn't matter, but you can relate to each other. And it's just such a good topic to sort of talk about and relate to and sort of make friends around. And I've made some great friends through collecting. And I think, we've got to open it up a little bit because people are a bit guarded about what they've got and bits and pieces. But for me, it's a bit of a sharing sort of thing in terms of, what do you got? And, I get pretty wrapped for others who, land their whale or their jumper that they're really chasing. I've got something super interesting. I find that a big thrill to see that on some of the pages and bits and pieces. So, yeah, it's certainly one of those topics that's pretty interesting. I think we're going to have to edit that, man. I forgot the question.
I thought you might have.
Sorry. Go back. What was it? I'm fucking yapping on.
What does your family and friends think of your collection? They know about it.
Yeah, I think family and friends think I'm a bit crazy. I don't tell a lot of people. And that's why, I found it pretty refreshing to get onto some of the forums and see some other collectors. You being one of them, Aaron, is sort of pretty inspiring, and sort of made me sort of think. I've been collecting for a long time. I'd like to share my collection. Not to show it off, but just to sort of say, hey, listen, this is what I do. This is what I collect. These are some of the things I think about, and the sort of the challenges I'm faced with collecting. And it's really opened up the door to some other collectors, especially some young ones who have bought some jumpers off me, collecting bits and pieces. So a lot of family and friends I don't tell too much to. My 2 daughters will inherit a big collection, I reckon. Yeah, it's just something I'm passionate about. I love the history of the jumper, and I love the jumper collecting, and it gives me a lot of enjoyment. So I don't really care what they think.
That's a pretty quality answer. I like that one. All right, so we're going to wind it down. One last question for you before we head off and watch the Brisbane-Richmond game, which we're all very excited to watch. I think it's going to be an absolute corker. What is the one jumper you don't have in your collection that you would love to get your hands on?
I've got 2. I've got 2 very quickly, yeah. One is a 2010 Grand Final player issue, which I'm working on. Super, super hard to get. The players all took theirs, obviously, and there were player spares and that. And Collingwood has an archives collection that they filter every different jumper the club plays into. And so they won't release a lot of jumpers because they're kept in there, which is the holy grail of collections that not many people are aware of. Clubs do have them, those archive sections. And so that's a tough one. And the other one is a 1996 centenary lace-up player issue. I've seen only a couple, super, super rare, very hard to get. So they're my two whales. If anyone's got them and wants to offload them for a decent price, I'm prepared to listen.
Yeah, definitely hit Paul up for that because I'm sure he'll be very keen to have a chat with you. All right, Paul, so that's going to be it for us today. I've had a great time having a chat with you. Unlike what people say, Collingwood fans aren't all that bad, and you've got some fantastic-looking teeth, so the stigma's broken. I really appreciate you joining me. Yeah, I really appreciate you joining me, and I really, really enjoyed having our chat today, and I love hearing about your collection. And your page is fantastic. Definitely want everyone to have a look at it and join along. And if you want to, make your own page, and we'll follow along with that as well. So this is what it's all about. It's about meeting everybody in the collecting game, and I'm having a great time doing it, and I hope you guys are enjoying listening to it. So thank you very much again, Paul. I've had a great time with you, and thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. Had a ball, and the podcast is unbelievable, mate. Keep it going.
Beautiful. I'm glad you're a fan as well, so that really, really helps. Thanks a lot, mate.
Okay, there we have it. That's our interview with Paul this week. Thank you very much for your insight, Paul. I think you'll enjoy it just as much as I did. We're just going to give a big shout out to some fans of our show, which we didn't know about, I guess you can say, because they simply found our show and we were listening to our show quietly in the background, and we have never met or come across them before. And the only reason we did is because they were listening to the show and they heard about a jumper that I was selling after having it in my collection. And I believe the partner actually really was interested in it and he loves his North Melbourne, so he was very interested in seeing the jumper. And when he saw it on eBay all this time, which I have had it up for a little while, he was very keen to get it, but unfortunately never had the funds.
Been following it for a long time.
Yeah, so and then I get an offer for it on eBay a couple of weeks ago now, where we quickly became to an arrangement where she told me that it was going to be for a wedding anniversary present. So I didn't haggle or do too much. I just said, yeah, all right, well, I'm willing to sell for this price, and she was more than happy to pay that, as it turned out to be one hell of a wedding present, being a Wayne Carey North Melbourne 1999 jumper. It's something pretty special, and obviously he was certainly wanting it. And so she forked out a fair amount of cash for that, so certainly got a good one there, Paul. Well done. You've got yourself a great jumper, and it's going to certainly take pride of place on your wall, I reckon. But it's awesome to meet a fan, as I didn't know until I actually rocked up at his house to actually hand deliver it, because I didn't want it to go missing or anything to happen to the jumper. So I offered to deliver it myself, and they were happy for me to do that, so I did. And turns out that they knew who I was, which was very interesting when they said, "Is your name Aaron?" And I said, "Yes, it was." And this is really weird, but how do you know my name? And they went on to tell me they were fans of the show. So that was something pretty incredible.
Well, the whole time I was sitting in the car, I thought you'd gotten mugged or kidnapped almost. And nah, he was just having a 20-minute conversation with fans. And I'm sitting in the car like, what's happened? Front door shut and he was gone.
Yeah, so I had been kidnapped by that dog, actually, who was trying to hump me. So very cute dog, but goddamn, that was a big dog. It was only, I think they said it was only a few months old, so I'm very scared to ever go back to that house because it may take over me.
Consume you.
But yeah, so it's really great to hear that we have fans from all over Australia that we really don't know about. So that just keeps our fire burning and keeps us wanting to do this every time we jump on here to do a new show, or if we're sitting there thinking maybe, 7's enough and we can stop doing it now. Then people like Paul and his lovely wife, who is extremely generous, they come out of the woodworks and say that they're fans of the show, and that just drives us to keep on going and do some more. So thank you very much, guys, and congratulations again on your wedding anniversary. And of course, Paul, congratulations on your great jumper, and you've certainly got a keeper in your wife there. So it's going to run over a few little things this week. Some what we normally would go through in the open, we've moved it to the close this week due to the unfortunate incident, of course. But we're going to talk about a few topics.
Do you want to start off with the rumours that are apparently going around about the jumper manufacturers changing? And
Yes, we'll bring that up. So there have been a few rumblings and rumours about some of the jumper manufacturers, and Dave, who was our interview on the previous episode, was very persistent on telling us about these rumours, but I was kind of already going to bring them up on this show, and so I kept deleting his comments that were made on some of the posts that I had up, which I wasn't trying to be rude. Sorry, Dave. I just wanted to talk about it on the show, so thankfully he's sent me across those so I can bring them up here with you today. So all credit goes to you, Dave. Thank you, Dave, again. So first of all, Carlton to Puma, I think, is pretty much all done and dusted now. You've seen during the week or possibly a couple of weeks ago, they sold off all their white jumpers on their auction site. If you didn't see that, then it was the AFLauctions.com Carlton page where they sold off all their white away jumpers. And Paddy Cripps' one went for $2,200.
that's actually really cheap.
Yeah, it's not too
Well,
bad.
I would have thought for his jumper.
Yeah, for someone who's a higher chance of winning the Brownlow this year,
I would have thought it got a lot more than that.
$2,200 is not too bad at all. So we've also heard some mass rumours about ISC, which I haven't been able to confirm or deny as of yet, but I do find it interesting that there's a couple of little things going with some of the clubs. For instance, St Kilda just announced a couple of weeks ago that they were were coming back to ISC. Thank you, Milo, for that contribution. So St Kilda have announced that they're coming back to ISC, and that's after there was rumours that ISC had gone bust, much like BLK did in the last couple of years. Now, Essendon had signed a 7-year contract only 2 years ago with ISC, and apparently, this is again just a rumour, we cannot confirm or deny, Essendon are looking to move to Under Armour, which if you've seen before Brisbane moved to Majestic, they actually had a sample jumper go out from Under Armour, which actually looked exactly the same as the Majestic one does or did last year. So, very interesting there. If Essendon do go with Under Armour, they're breaking, I guess, a 7-year contract, but is that because ISC can no longer put out their product anymore, which is, very interesting. I don't know how that's all going about. There's also rumours of Collingwood going to Nike with ISC going down, and Sydney have also rumoured to be going to Nike as well, but I don't know how concrete that actually is, but I couldn't really tell you. I have absolutely no idea what's going on with ISC, so I really, really do not know. But
Word rumoured underlined.
Yes, rumoured heavily underlined. Thank you, Emma. It's going to play out in the next few weeks, no doubt, but hopefully it doesn't go the way of BLK. ISC do put out really nice jumpers, and it would be a shame to see them go, especially as a Freo fan who we've had them since 2011, and since 2013 they've made really quality players jumpers, so it would be sad to see it go, but with everything comes change, and if we do change next year, it wouldn't be the most upsetting thing to see us go to like a decent manufacturer. Puma would be lovely, but I don't think that we'd get someone like Puma. But anyway, moving on. Apparently Melbourne have announced a 3-year extension to their New Balance contract, so they're not going anywhere with New Balance. And I think the Melbourne fans are pretty happy about that one. They do enjoy their Melbourne jumpers from
New Balance?
They do enjoy their jumpers from New Balance, yes, indeed.
How'd you get Adidas?
Well, I was going to say Asics,
Puma
but I got Asics and Adidas and, New Balance.
Every company you could think of, you put in there.
There's a lot of manufacturers running through my head right now, so...
Are BLK actually not a company, like gone? Do they not manufacture jumpers anymore?
So they went into receivership a couple of years ago, which means that they didn't go bankrupt, they didn't completely shut down. However, they went into administration, I believe they called it. Basically, they looked like they were going to shut down and they were gone for all money. So all the clubs that were with BLK at the time moved on to other clubs. And some of the cricket teams actually kept going with BLK, which was interesting because we didn't know what that meant for AFL or BLK in general. And it seems that BLK have made a comeback. They're with a lot of rugby teams still. So it looks like they may be back in the game. So I don't know what's going to happen as far as AFL. I don't know if the AFL they'll come back to an AFL club, but
they're still a company.
They're still technically a company, there. Yes. I actually thought that X-Blades bought them out because they were very similar, but no, incorrect. So yeah, that is our jumper manufacturer rumours for the week. Hopefully we can bring you a little bit more actual truth and fact to those in the coming weeks.
So next topic, what did you get in this week?
What did I get in this week? Okay, so actually in the last episode I was very hesitant to bring it up in the eBay sales because I didn't want to have anyone find out about it. And Josh did actually bring it up on the episode purely just to be a dick. He mentioned it. Oh, what about that Max Gorn that's on eBay? And I just cut it out. I said, no, dickhead, I'm cutting that out. So
did you want people bidding on it?
I didn't want anyone bidding on it. So I told him, well done, nice try. But remember, I edit this show. So, yes, I cut that bit out.
Don't get in the way of this man and his jumpers.
So, good try, Josh. Thank you very much for that. And, yes, I did buy a 2019 Max Gorn home player issue. It was one of the ones on eBay that were very weirdly worded, so I was able to pick it up for $140, which is super cheap for a Max Gorn, especially in a all-Australian year. And I actually had my max bid at $265. Max, get it? Uh-huh. My max bid at $265, so I was very, very happy to pick that up for $140. Also, the retro jumpers, the Fremantle retro jumpers, I managed to pick up 2 from that auction. I got Cam McCarthy's, which is clearly match-worn. I say that because there was a lot of conjecture about that auction in the end, where they weren't too sure whether or not they were worn, which, yeah, it's a bit different, but...
I don't believe they made that many of them, though.
No, so 2 to 3, I'd say 3 probably max, to be honest. So I found out that they actually auctioned off one set of them at the gala event, the gala auction that the club holds. I didn't know about that at all. And then they put up the auction a few weeks later when they mentioned that they were player-issued Guernseys, and that had everyone reeling and weren't too sure whether they were worn or not. And at first I was told they weren't worn, but then I was told in the last couple of days that they weren't sure if they were worn or not, which made it very difficult.
Is that why you believe you got it as, I wouldn't say cheap, but cheaper than what?
I think that's why the Fife went so cheap.
Yeah, than what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah, Fife went for $605 after fees and taxes. Well done, Ash. I've seen you won that yesterday. Congratulations. If you ever want to sell it, please let me know.
We almost had 3.
Yes.
Because I was trying to buy one.
Yes.
It took me so long to figure out a username so you wouldn't know it was me. And you still bloody figured it out. And
I didn't, however.
Yeah?
No.
Oh.
I saw the name Impulse Buy. I thought that was an interesting name.
That was my username.
That was her username, and her actual business name is Impulse Mobile Beauty. So something clicked in my head that what's going on here? I've never seen this name before, but
I thought that was smart.
It was very smart.
And it was an impulse buy. I was like, what can I get you for Christmas? What does one get you for Christmas? You have everything. So I was like, I'll buy. I can't even say his name. You're gonna have
Please
to say
it. I want to hear you say it.
Swiskowski?
Well, it's not.
Mike Wazowski? I can't say it!
And I believe that it was actually bought by Vita. So congratulations, Vita, on your win.
Someone kept bidding me up and I was like, I'm not paying this for this.
It was a Sam Sutkowski.
That's it!
He's not a household name, but he's a fantastic little player. He'll certainly be a replacement Ballantyne. He's just all go 100% effort all the time. So I think he's going to be a gun little player in the future.
Well, I tried.
You did, and I appreciate the effort. I also picked up David Mundy's retro as well, so I was very stoked to get that. Yes, I paid a fair bit more than I expected, although I did say to Emma at the start, anything under $1,000 I'd be happy, so $630 for that, I wasn't too upset.
No, I wasn't too disappointed.
And it looks worn as well, so I believe I did get 2 of the match worns out of that. Ken McCarthy's is definitely worn. It's got a number of rip marks on it, so where he was tackled, where it's actually torn the material. So that one I can definitely say is match worn. I have a photo to prove it as well, so that's nice. It's nice. And the latest one I got is a Ryan Crowley Indigenous jumper from 2013, which is super, super rare and very hard to get. It's actually the second one only that I've ever seen. And I actually have both of those. So, yeah, stoked to pick that one up. So, yeah, that is my ins for the last couple of weeks, which is actually not that many, but still love every single one of them, of course.
Okay, so on your Player Issue podcast page,
yes,
you had a poll. What were the results of it, and what was the reasoning for this poll?
As I mentioned with the retro jumpers that I just picked up, the whole issue with it being worn, unworn, that could very easily be fixed simply by having the jumpers not washed. Now, I know for myself anyway, I'd much prefer a jumper come from an auction as unwashed. And some people don't like that or whatever, but I prefer it in the original condition that it came off the field, which is why I put up this poll. I wanted to see what other people's thoughts were, not just for myself, but also to put across to some of the clubs who send out theirs as wash jumpers. And I just wanted to give them a bit of a heads up that maybe some people don't want it that way, or maybe they can make a little bit more money out of it.
And they didn't believe people would want dirty jumpers.
Correct. So I did actually I did contact one person from a club, and they said that people don't want them washed. Don't want them unwashed. They don't want the smell. They don't want the dirt. And I said, well, I beg to differ. And I have an avenue that I can use that we can see exactly the results of that. So I did. I put up the poll. And after 6 days, so it was only a 6-day poll, and I got 606 votes, which was a damn good result, I think.
Didn't even know you had that many friends.
I don't, so I don't know where these people came from. But I appreciate it. Every single person that did, in fact, vote. We actually had 6,102 people look at the post. So that's a hell of a lot of people actually look at the post.
It's a very big audience.
It is huge. So if only 10% of those, well, actually 10% of those did vote. So well done, 10% of you people. If we had a few more people vote, then it would have been out of control. But 606 is a very nice result. I appreciate it very much. And the result was 19% were washed and 81% unwashed, which comes to 115 people want their jumpers washed and 491 people want them unwashed.
That's massive.
It's massive. So it's a big result in favour of unwashed. And so if you have an opinion on that and you maybe didn't see the poll, maybe just let us know on the page, or even if you have some unwashed jumpers, put them up so we can all have a look. But yeah, so that is your result for that poll. And again, I appreciate everyone jumping in and chiming on the result there.
Do you believe when you buy something on an auction, there should be like an option, washed or unwashed, or just you should just buy it unwashed, and if you hate the smell that much, wash it yourself?
Yeah, I don't mind that idea. That's a pretty good idea. Yeah, if they could do that, to have an option, that would probably be really a smart idea on the clubs.
You know, when you buy something and it's like, do you give permission for this to be left out the front, yes or no, sort of thing. Like, It should be like that. Do you want this washed or unwashed?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah, I like that.
And then if you go, no, I don't want it washed, you receive it dirty. If you say, yes, I want it washed, then they wash them and then you receive it.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we can take that to the clubs as well. Thank you, Emma. That's a smart idea. So yeah, if anyone else has any ideas like that, let us know. Obviously, there are things like signing the jumpers. They'll have to work that out as well, because obviously it's not just everyone just gets together and sign it all at once or signs it at certain times. It's whenever they can get them out the back there to sign them. So there are things that can create some sort of chaos. And there's also reasons why they don't do it, and it's because of the COAs. They have to pay to get the COAs done. They have to send jumpers away to get them authenticated, or fly somebody over from SC Products to actually authenticate it. So it is a whole process why they don't do it as such.
And you can see why jumpers sell for as much as they do.
Exactly right. And
for the amount of money they've got to spend on them.
But if you put up a photo of a jumper on the auction that's absolutely filthy and looks like the original dirt from the game, then I can guarantee you people will pay a lot more money for it. I think it goes to show on the Port Adelaide auctions, same thing, or Port Adelaide club sales, just like the Indigenous ones, when they walk into the club and everything's filthy, that people are much more willing to spend more money. So I think that will go for pretty much every club. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If you have any thoughts, let us know.
What have you come across sales-wise this week?
There's actually been a lot, and it has been 3 weeks since we've done our last podcast, so I apologise for that to begin with. So it also gives us the opportunity to talk about quite a few jumpers. In saying that, I'm going to narrow it down quite a bit, because otherwise I'll be here forever. There was obviously the Gym Kids sales that we were talking about for the West Coast jumpers. There was a Jared Redden 2018 Clash jumper, go for $380 on auction. So it wasn't a buy now, but it was an auction. So very interesting to see that get 43 bids and it goes so high. So yeah, that was a little bit surprising.
Must have been some big bids then, like high bids.
Yeah, people really wanted it. There was also number 45, 1995 Richmond jumper, which I don't believe was ever worn. I believe it was a gentleman that maybe possibly wore it in the reserves, as it was Darryl Griffin who played in the 95 reserves team that season. But it ended up going for $255. So, yeah, interesting. People will certainly want those early jumpers, even if it is by a player that, didn't really play so much.
Or wasn't worn at all.
Yeah. And in saying that, the one that really surprised me, I guess it shouldn't by now, but a Carlton 1997 jumper, which match issue, we don't know if it was worn or not, but they don't mention that either. It was a number 28, and this gentleman, I can't remember his name now, but he played one game for the Carlton Football Club in 97. Only one game. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure he played in 97, but he only ever played one game for the club. And this jumper went for $610. So Carlton fans certainly love to pay big money. Yeah, I was surprised about that when I saw it go so high, but it is a pretty nice looking jumper, but $610.
Stop you there for a sec. Is there a fucking midgie
hanging
around you? Because I'm getting angry.
It's driving me
and I'm trying not to hit it.
We also had a Jimmy Bartell 2012 player issue Geelong Clash jumper, and that one was Brian Green's jumper. Brian Green being the seller. He actually messaged me about it just to see if he could get some clarity on it and see if it is actually a player issue jumper, and I assured him yes it was. It did take me a week to get back to him. Sorry about that. I did see your message, just completely forgot to message you back. Brian got $415.50 for that. So I'm not even sure he would have expected to get that, but I think the EJ Whitten game probably got his currency up on that one because he had a hell of a game. Not too many people did. I actually do want to bring up the EJ Whitten topic as well, but we may not do that today. We might do it in the next one.
Might have to.
It'll take me a while to talk about that. Those who were involved in that auction, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They know exactly
what you're going on about.
So I'll leave that to the next one because that one may take a while to cover. Saw a Tyson Goldsack over $150. So his is on rather the higher side for a Collingwood 2018 jumper, obviously because he just retired, so that certainly helps. Last one I'll bring up that I saw sold is a 2006 Heritage Round Brisbane Lions jumper. Same guy selling it that had the Michael Voss that went for $365, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. He also had Jonathan Brown's. And I tried to get Josh to buy it, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And he sold it for $455. Pretty damn good jumper. And pretty good price, really, when you look at what it actually is. It's a pretty special looking jumper, and Jonathan Brown being one of the best of all time, you'd be happy with that. Now, the very last thing I'm going to bring up about eBay sales is something that's going on right now. The only reason I'll bring it up instead of trying to hide this one is because I am out as far as bidding goes. It's only been going for a day. It's got 8 days and 15 hours left as of this moment at 5:30 on a Saturday afternoon. So we're trying to wrap this up as quick as you can because the Brisbane and GWS game has just started. Is a match-worn Chris Judd. I don't know exactly what year it's from. It looks like a 2013 possibly. It's $906.73 currently.
How much were you prepared to spend on that?
Well, I sent the seller a message immediately and said, we'll just take $300 for it because they started off at $79. I thought I could just scam a nice cheap jumper here for $300. But unfortunately, they didn't have a chance to get back to me before it completely blew out of proportion, and it now has 20 bids on it. So, yeah, that one's currently up to $906. So, any of you are out there bidding on that right now, I wish you good luck because it will be a fabulous jumper to have in your collection, but I hope you're prepared to lose your wallet. Obviously didn't see anything on Gumtree this week, that's why I didn't bring anything up. However, yes, that is what I've seen on eBay this week, or the last couple of weeks, and that is my notable sales for you.
Want to tell everyone about our eBay troubles?
Okay, so didn't really want to talk about it or bring it up, really, but I guess it's the first time it's ever happened, so we might as well bring it up. I noticed there was a couple of WA State League State of Origin football jumpers on eBay, and of course I had to have them. They were $24.99 starting bid. I just threw out a $40 offer to the seller, and he immediately accepted, which was really cool. So it was a 2016 and a 2018 State of Origin game against the against the South Australians in the Sandful League, which I was stoked to have. Thought they were really cool. Did some research. And in the meantime, there was another one. There was a number 13. It was a black, and it was a rather old-looking design. So that really confused me. So I bought that as well for $40 also. And then all these other jumpers, Subiaco jumpers, started popping up. All the number 15. So I thought, okay, this should be pretty easy to figure out who they are. Managed to find out pretty quickly they were Chris Phelan's, who has been a stalwart in the Waffle League for a long time. He's now playing his trade over in Melbourne. And so I messaged Chris on Facebook and just asked him if he could give me some information on the black one that I purchased. He said that, yes, I can give you some information that is from my earlier underage days when I played in the State League, State of Origin underage games. However, they are stolen and I would like them back. So obviously my heart dropped immediately and I thought, God damn it, like, this is extremely upsetting. What am I going to do? And obviously I just said, yeah, of course, I can help you out. So from there we proceeded to figure out who it was that sold the jumpers on eBay. I managed to get him a name, got him an address, because the person was silly enough to send me their address, saying that I could pick them up from them. And so the police have been out to see them, and they have been caught. So not sure exactly what's happened to them. I couldn't really give you names or anything like that, obviously, because it is ongoing. Chris is obviously going to get his jumpers back. His old man is actually going to come see me probably tomorrow to pick up the jumpers that I have, because he would really like them back. So I actually didn't get the number 13 in mail. The 13th yellow State of Origin, 2018. They ended up sending me a number 15 Subiaco 100th anniversary jumper, which I told Chris that, and he got extremely excited because he said that was the one jumper that he really wanted back. So he was actually really happy to get that back. So I'm really happy to help him out. Obviously very disappointed that I'm losing the state jumpers, but it is what it is. And fingers crossed I can get my money back on those, but I'm not too sure at this stage. eBay are basically telling me that I'm out of luck.
But did you pay with PayPal?
I did pay with PayPal, and sorry, I have actually contacted eBay, so I haven't contacted PayPal as of yet. I think
the best thing would be to contact PayPal, not eBay, because eBay will be like, well, why would we give you your money back? That's your own problem. But I think the whole purpose of PayPal is things like this. Yeah, so unfortunately what it's going to happen is being able to prove it. So it'll go into a dispute, won't it? Yeah, so I think it will be a long-winded thing where hopefully I can get my money back, but I think it will take a long investigation between PayPal and eBay, and hopefully they contact the police, because they told me I had to get the police to contact them, but why would they contact eBay about it? Someone's $130, because they wouldn't really care, considering they've already caught the person who stole them. And they've got the stolen jumpers back. Yeah, so that's going to make it very difficult for me, but of course I'm willing to help out, as he seems to be a nice bloke. Never met him myself. Didn't really even know who he was until I started researching him. So, but obviously he wants his jumpers back from those days. So obviously more than happy to help him out. And the right thing to do is to give them back. Of course, yes. And he has said he will compensate me with a jumper or two. So that's nice of him. Obviously I wouldn't expect anything, but it would be nice to see some jumpers out of it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So that was rather fun, and has been ongoing for the last couple of weeks. But is what it is. It's the first time it's ever happened where I bought something that has been stolen. Not the nicest thing to find out, but all you can do is, help out and give them back, basically. And that's exactly what I had to do. So that's going to do it for today. I thank you very much for putting up with us throughout this whole episode. We are done through number 8 now. We're going to keep it going as much as we can. Hopefully it won't take 3 weeks this time. Our internet was rather shit. And I was working lots. Emma's been working rather a lot, so she hasn't been able to do the close with me. But, things happen in life, and we will continue to make them as we're able to. Still going to try and stick with every fortnight. I am away for next week. I am going to Melbourne for a conference. So all you Melbourne folk out there, if you want to get in contact with me, if you want to catch up, very limited time, but we'll see what I can do. So we've got a few things coming up. We've got an interview lined up with another Victorian club very shortly. We've also got a couple of things in the landscape of end-of-season sales that we can announce. Fremantle's having theirs on the 21st of September, which is next Saturday at this point, from 9 to 1 at the Fremantle home at Coburn Arc, and that'll be held in the locker room, so that'll be a lot of fun. It was last year.
Also, Port Adelaide have got their one coming up, and it's going to be a bit different this year. It's going to be from 4 till 8 p.m. on Friday, the 27th of September. PM. So that's going to make things a little bit more difficult, or a bit different for those that are...
People will be rushing from work.
Yeah, they will be. I'd still like to find out if the guys who stay overnight for the morning ones are going to be doing that again. I assume they probably will. I don't know if I should have said that over the podcast, but I think everyone knows that now anyway.
Delete.
So that'll be interesting to hear what those guys are going to do, and I'm actually going to try and get involved in that as much as I can, and we're going to do some interviews with people that are in the line either the night before or just throughout the day, what they're going to do, or they're going to let us know what they picked up when they went in there, what everything was priced at, what was there, how everything looks, how much fun they had, how it all went about, and just everything that they did while they were in there. So that's going to be fun conversations to have, and hopefully we can get someone from the Port Adelaide Football Club on the show as well, so they can talk to us about it. Gold Coast Suns just had theirs last weekend, so if you were there and I would pick up a few things, hope you had fun. Big shout out to Blake Cook, who picked up a Isaac Rankin Jr. for me. Isaac Rankin jumper for me. I appreciate that very much. I'll hook you up when the sale for Fremantle happens next week. If anyone else knows of any club sales coming up, please let us know. I'm sure everyone would love to hear and see it. But if you don't want to let us know, we totally understand. Because it was hard for me to tell you about the Freo one. But Milo has let one absolutely rip. So we are going to get out of here before this room is completely gassed out. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Emma, for coming on today. But people can't see head nods. It's
sorry.
It's not a video show. Thank you again, and we'll see you next episode 9.